Sarah, thank you for being here on Tales of Versatail. Firstly, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you're very, very busy, and I am grateful for you giving up your time. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. I think the listeners are going to have so many little nuggets of wisdom and information that they can learn from you. So it's going to be really, really cool. To start with, are you able to just share your journey into how you became a combat helicopter pilot in the RAF?
Yes, absolutely. So I decided quite young, I think I was about 12, that I wanted to be a pilot,
Okay.
um, all because of the movie Top Gun.
Right.
That is the truth. um, but actually, my family and my teachers were really supportive of that, and they said, "Great, if you want to be a pilot, why not?" So that was really lovely. So I was um, well supported and did things like air cadets and CCF and all that kind of stuff. I was pretty geeky as a kid, if I'm
Right.
honest. But it just gathered momentum. So applied for the Air Force when I could, got sponsored through school, got sponsored through university, joined the Air Force, did 21 years,
21 years.
and ended up being a helicopter pilot for most of that,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. And then basically left about 4 years ago,
Right.
and then transitioned into more of the speaking, which is kind of why I'm here today.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really how I got here.
Nice. So what did it actually take to get into to being a helicopter pilot in terms of, was that exams? Was it physically demanding? What did you have to kind of go through?
So everybody goes through officer and crew selection um, at Cranwell, which is actually not far from here. That's 4 days of aptitude testing, a medical exam, but also leadership. Sort of, they put you through scenarios to see if you can be an officer. So once you get through that, then flying training takes as long as it takes.
Mhm.
It's from start to end, it's probably about 2 years if you did everything one after the other. But often it takes longer because when you finish flying the small helicopter, you go into a bigger one. There's usually a gap between you do those things.
Mhm.
Also, I started out wanting to be a fighter pilot, so I went down the JETS program, the
Right,
fast jet
okay.
program,
Yeah.
and then got chopped. So now I had
Chopped.
to start again. Yeah.
What was
Um,
that like? Tell us about that.
so that's really interesting because everybody says, "Oh, you'll probably feel really relieved
Okay.
because the pressure's off." And if you've got chopped, it's because you're right on the edge of what your ability is.
Yeah.
And I think that probably everybody could learn how to fly that thing eventually, but they've got to cut off somewhere. There's only so many hours they can give you, and you
Yeah.
sort of have to
You
make
have
the
to be
standard
ready to and then.
in that time. So I just wasn't quite there.
Mm.
And I do think, we love talking about imposter syndrome these days.
Yeah.
I think that was massively there
Okay.
for me because the attrition rate is quite high. You know that, lots of people want to be fighter pilots, but very few people make it. So there's that bit kind of going, there's that bit in your brain where you go, how have I made it this far? And I remember another one of my friends talking about that. We didn't have the words imposter syndrome back then, but they
Yeah.
said,
You didn't really
when
know
you
what it was.
strap into the jet, do you ever expect someone to tap you on the shoulder and go, "We found you, get out of the jet"? So I think we all felt it. Um, and so I think that's why people talk about that sense of relief. You're like, I've been found out finally, thank goodness,
Yeah.
Um,
Was
so
that
there's a
quite comforting, thinking, okay, it wasn't actually the right path for me. Let's do a different one, or how did you find?
I think it's a mixture
Yeah.
of emotions because I think you know, when you feel that sense of relief, it's because you feel as though you don't have to put yourself under pressure to be the best you can be.
Right.
But as you know, being the best you can be means you live with that pressure.
Yeah.
And it's sort of something you learn to accommodate. And I think
Absolutely.
when I was 21, I probably didn't have the mental tools to do that yet. Whereas now
Mm.
I've learned mindfulness and I've learned that you can learn how to accommodate that pressure.
Yeah.
It's tiring,
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
why sometimes you hope for bad weather days. You're like, I just don't want to have to go flying today and try and be brilliant.
Yeah, do you know what? I think that's such a really important message that even when you're doing your passions and your goals, and that's exactly what you want to do, you do wake up sometimes and think, "Ugh, I don't want to do this today." I think normalizing that, I think is really, really
Yeah,
important, really important.
absolutely. I remember speaking to rowers about this,
Mm.
and they said, when you're walking down to the water's edge, you're all secretly hoping for some kind of biblical storm so that you don't have
Right.
to go
I
kind of
thought I was the only one thinking
And it
that.
was the same, we talk about getting ground happy. when the weather was bad, and so you were grounded.
Okay.
And so I think everybody does feel it. It's not because you don't love it and you almost don't want to talk about it because it feels ungrateful,
Yeah,
but it is
definitely.
because you feel this sense of obligation.
Yeah, and I
And
feel like you think you
mm,
shouldn't have that feeling
yeah,
because what I personally feel like when I get it sometimes in cricket is like, I'm so lucky to be doing this job. It's what I've wanted to do for years. How can I not want to do it all of the time? And yeah, and I often feel like that. So it's quite refreshing to hear that somebody else feels that way as well. It's more
yeah,
normal than we think.
definitely. And we didn't really talk about it when I was flying, but my partner is also an ex-helicopter pilot, and we've sort of, confessed to each other these things, so I know I'm not the only one, but it isn't something you talk about. So you do probably think I'm the only one that feels like this, so I can't ever say
Yeah.
this.
When did you first start talking about that then? I said you said when you were 21 you were about going through this phase.
Yeah.
Was it only really when you became like a leader and a bit more established in your career that you started to kind of verbalize these kind of thoughts?
I don't know if I ever really spoke about it when I was
Okay.
in the military.
Right.
And as a leader, there's also an element of it's a really difficult balance to strike between being honest and showing people that they're not alone, but also putting a seed of doubt in their mind.
Yeah.
So if you're about to fly into a war zone, you kind of do need to put a bit of a brave face
Yeah.
on it. So I didn't talk about it much. That's not to say that that was the right thing, but I think I would have seen that as weakness or um, putting doubt in people's mind, which is not
Yeah,
a helpful
definitely.
thing. It's more since I've left the military and reflected, and again with the whole mindfulness thing,
Yeah.
that really allowed me to look back at my experiences and understand what was going on in my brain and understand that it's a normal part of being a human.
Yeah. That makes
So
so
I
much
think it's
sense.
come much later, that kind of realization.
Yeah. And look, we will touch on the mindfulness
Yes.
later because I'm really interested in that and how it can help with performance. But first, talk to us what it's like leading people into war.
Yes. It's what is it like?
Can you describe it? Can you explain it?
Yeah, it's hard to put my finger on it, I suppose. I think you are very aware that it's life or death.
Yeah.
By definition, you're in a country where not everyone's delighted that you're there, and some people are shooting at you, and some people want to kill you. So the sense of life and death is very real.
Mm.
Whether or not you're actually in more danger is an interesting point because, in many ways, you take more precautions.
Yeah.
And actually, what we found was that a lot of accidents would happen in training or when people would get back from a war zone because they thought they were invincible.
Right.
And then
Bless
they'd
it.
crash their car driving down the A1.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing of perceived versus real
Yeah.
threat. But obviously, there is a very genuine threat to life.
Yeah.
I don't think so. And I think this is when you do need to kind of act braver than you feel sometimes. And I think what is amazing about this is when people talk about their power poses and all the rest of it, it does kind of work. When you
Right.
go, right, come on, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel it, you start to feel it. So I think you do need to kind of, there's a little bit of bravado
Yeah.
maybe. And I think there is an element that you have to believe today's not my day. You just have to think it's not going to happen to you because otherwise
Yeah.
you just wouldn't do it.
Do you have those kind of self doubts coming in around that time?
Of course,
Yeah.
I think you rightly or wrongly you don't give it an audience.
Fair.
Not necessarily try to drown it out, but whatever you do, you just don't focus on that. You focus on the job in hand. And you know,
What are some of the thoughts that are kind of coming up as you're doing that? Can you give some examples of like some negative self talk going on that you're able to just push aside to be able to get on with the job?
so I think that we're more afraid of things that won't kill us than things that will kill us.
Okay.
I think I would be afraid that if I get shot at, am I going to hold it together or am I going to fall apart?
Really?
I'm
Rather
not
than
afraid
actually
of being shot at. I think when you're then lying awake at night and you've got more time to think about it, you probably do think, am I going to come home to my family? But I think actually when you're about to go and do it, I think you're more worried about failure than you are worried about whether or not you're going to come back from a mission.
Yeah. And what is it like in that moment of having I'm guessing you have to make decisions pretty quickly under quite extreme pressure. Did you find that almost because you're forced to do that, you had that kind of clarity, or was it chaos? What's it like in that moment?
No, I think you have clarity,
Okay.
hopefully most of the time. And I think it's because you're focused
Mm.
and also because we're really, really, really highly trained.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest misconceptions I think about decision making under pressure is that some people have just got this natural ability to stay calm and it's a mark of their character.
Yeah.
We train all of the time so that, when the bullets are firing over our head, you don't think, you just do,
Right.
to
Yeah.
quote Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
because we're not designed to think rationally under pressure. And anyone who thinks that they can is probably giving themselves a very hard time. What we're designed to do is make quick decisions. And you tend to do that because you've made that decision previously in training. And you go,
Yeah.
well, that kept me alive last time. It will keep me alive today. So I think you very much rely on your training.
So what does training look like for you then in terms of simulating those pressure
Mhm.
moments? Can you describe what that actually looks like in practice?
So we have a phrase, train hard, fight easy. So we train and we deliberately expose ourselves to scenarios where, we're going to be under fire. So we do that in the simulator.
Okay.
We will do single missions, we'll do formation missions where we're all joined up as a big package. We used to do things called Thursday Wars where we would get lots of different types of aircraft in to do that in the simulator. We would do pre-deployment training with the ground troops that we're going to be flying with. So it's everything from doing it in the simulator to doing it, flying around Spade Adam,
Yeah.
again, not too far from here, doing it in the real aircraft. But it's the full thing really.
And did you have like the same level of nerves, anxiety from training into the real thing, or was there kind of a noticeable shift of like, no, we're going into battle now?
It's interesting because in training you're always being assessed.
Right.
And there's always going to be a mission debrief, and someone is going to be writing you up and saying you were good or you were less good or you were really
Mhm.
good. When you go to war, no one is writing you up anymore because if you come home alive, you've kind of done the job,
That's
right?
it. Mission
So,
accomplished.
in a weird way, it's the first time, it's the only time you're allowed to get on and do your job without being assessed.
Right. Yeah. Strange.
So, it's actually probably the best flying you'll ever do.
Yeah. And was there a time in combat where like you thought, oh shit, everything's on the line here. This isn't going to plan.
I mean, I've been shot at a few times.
What was that like?
Uh, there's a moment of disbelief when you think, what's
What's
happening?
actually happening?
And you only ever know you're being shot at night because of the tracer fire.
Right.
So by day, you don't see bullets. Right? You just don't, unless you're, in the Matrix or uh,
Su-
whatever.
Supervision.
So actually, during the day, you're blissfully unaware.
Right.
It's only at night when you see the tracer that you know, or if it's more of a manpad's
Mm.
high tech threat, and you might see the corkscrew of the smoke trail. But a lot of the time, you don't know. So at night, you see the tracer fire, and it looks a lot like fireworks.
Really?
And also, in those kind of countries, a lot of places, when they have weddings, they fire,
Yeah.
um, you know, their Kalashnikovs into the air. So you're not quite sure if it's someone celebrating or someone trying to
Yeah.
shoot you.
Yeah. I imagine communication in that moment is very important then. Did you have kind of tools for communicating well with the rest of your team?
We have immediate actions under fire. So we have a checklist that we run through because back to my previous point, we're not great at thinking rationally
Yeah.
or problem solving. You just want something very automatic that
Mm.
you've practiced lots of times. So we have a set sort of list of things that we do, and we'll put a contact report out on the radio
Mm.
to let everybody else know that we're being shot at, so they know to take evasive maneuvers. So yeah, we kind of run through a very kind of prescribed set of drills, but also the words that we use are very prescribed because brevity is everything.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to say something which everybody understands what that means without you
Straight
having to
away.
say, well, there was this thing that I just saw with that's just going to take too long.
Yeah.
So when people say contact,
You
and
know
I feel
exactly
bad
what it
saying it
means.
because you're like, never say contact unless you're actually being shot at. But when you say contact, people know that's you being
Right.
shot at.
And what happens if you make a mistake up there? How do you deal with it quickly, I guess, and
Yeah.
in the most efficient manner?
You deal with it,
Mm.
and then you move on. And I think that's a really interesting that I've noticed, because I've got a son and I see the way he gets so frustrated at himself when he gets something wrong. And I remember what that was like. And a mission, the success of a mission often depended not on you getting it right, but how quickly you recovered when you got something wrong.
Right.
If you let that get into your head and you start ruminating on it, then it can
Mm.
make the rest of the mission a disaster. So I think it is a kind of, that wasn't great. And we had this phrase, let's talk about it on the ground.
Right, okay, so
So
just park it and
fly the
leave it.
aircraft,
Yeah,
let's talk about it on the ground. So you literally just have to go, okay, that's not ideal, but I'm going to
yeah.
fly the aircraft now. And then in the debrief, we'll go back through that slower time and go, what would we do differently next time? How do we take that learning with us next time?
Mm. So we'll talk about that because I'm really interested to see how you reflect well, because I think that's such an important message across sports teams, businesses, or extreme circumstances like yourself. But before we do, what was the biggest mistake that you made, either as a leader or your team made in combat? Can you describe what happened and then how you dealt with it?
In combat, yeah. I've made lots of really big mistakes, but I'm trying to think if they were in combat. I suppose my the leadership fail that I think about is to do with a hostage recovery mission
Okay.
where a woman had been taken hostage actually by the Taliban, and
Right.
we were going in to get her out when she'd been released. So we weren't going in and sort of smashing the doors in.
Yeah.
We were
With the
doing a sort of
extraction.
diplomatic release. So we briefed. So it's obviously an incredibly important mission.
Yeah.
Um, and the timings changed. We were supposed to be going really early in the morning, but everything got complicated. So we weren't going to go until later that night. And so I'm looking at a really long day for the crews. And we take crew duty very seriously
Yeah.
in the flying world because what's the word? Error rates go up
Yeah. If you're not
when you're on
tired.
duty
Yeah.
for more than about 12 hours.
Hmm.
So you can extend the day for an operational imperative, which this definitely qualified as, but you've also got to weigh up the risk
Yeah.
of, am I sending 6 really tired people in?
Mm.
And is that going to be worse than,
And does that decision lie with you primarily to
yes.
make that call?
So I made the call that we would basically fly tired if we needed to. And most people accepted it, but a couple of people really grumbled about it. And that really annoyed me. I didn't I didn't feel as though their priorities were in the right place, but also I didn't like the fact that they were potentially derailing everybody else, 'cause you
Yeah.
needed to be mission focused. And I didn't like the way that they were undermining my authority. So I kind of publicly told them off
Right.
because I wanted to make a stand as like, don't mess with me. Like I've made my decision. And I wanted to sort of establish my credibility.
Mhm.
And I guess, if I'm honest, I wanted them to feel a little bit stupid
Yeah.
for
Pushing back and
basically being a bit whiny as far
yeah.
as I was concerned. um, but of course, that did not make me in any way popular. And your job as a leader is not always to be popular.
Mm.
But when I reflect on it now, do I think they could have dealt with it better? Yes. Do I think I could have dealt with it better? Yes.
Mhm.
Because the minute you publicly shame someone for questioning your plan,
Yeah.
it's very unlikely that they're going to do that again.
Yeah.
And they might actually have seen something I hadn't seen. And I'll never really know because I didn't give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
And I was probably taking it more personally than I needed to because I thought, oh, they're just doing that because they don't like me.
Mm.
So I think, remembering that most people want to do a good job. And I think in the military, we're very purpose driven.
Yeah.
Of course, they want to go and get the hostage home safely. Of course they do. So I think I could have stopped and gone, what is it that you're worried about that you're not saying?
Yeah.
And then maybe tell them off
And
afterwards.
and how did the mission go? Was it
So
successful?
interestingly, in the end, the plan changed and she was moved by road, but she did get
Right.
out safely.
Nice.
So we didn't have to do it in the end.
Right. So it's yeah.
So again, we'll never know
Yeah.
what the
It's good
outcome
learning.
was.
Good learning
But
anyway.
yeah, really good learning in terms of when, sometimes you do have to be unpopular,
Mm.
but when are you confusing that willingness to be unpopular with sort of unchallengeable supremacy? And it's just
Yeah.
being able to use the right amount of authority, but also know when to go, okay, maybe I haven't seen everything that you've seen.
Yeah. How did you find kind of managing relationships as well with your team members in terms, like you say, that kind of balance of respect and
Mm,
popularity
yeah.
and not getting too confused with the both?
I mean, it definitely took me a while to, definitely bounced off the guardrails a few
Yeah.
times there. And I definitely think to begin with, I thought it was a popularity competition. And, of course I wanted to be liked.
Yeah, of
I
course.
really wanted to be liked. So I would say I sort of got that wrong a few
Mhm.
times before I realized that A, you can never please everybody.
Yeah.
So no matter how hard you try, you're always going to upset somebody. And actually they'll respect you more if you're just a bit more truthful. So and this is where, you know, um I've probably now, the more confident I've got, the more I'm prepared to be unpopular.
Mm.
And, as we were saying before this conversation, apparently my superpower is that I'm just enough of a bitch.
What does that mean? Can you expand on that a little bit more?
And I think it's not being hostage to the popularity thing
Okay.
and being prepared to let people down or disappoint people when you
Yeah.
genuinely feel it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to be unkind, you don't have to be disrespectful, but sometimes there are going to be times people will be disappointed in you and you go, okay, I'm going to live with that.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess that took quite a lot of time to be able to learn that skill almost to be able to do that.
I think, and again, this is where the sort of mindfulness thing came in. I had to learn how to accept myself. And I know the whole self love thing sounds really woo, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Um, you can only really do that when you're confident in yourself as a
Yeah.
person and go, I can look in the mirror and go, I'm not perfect, but I'm broadly a pretty
Mm.
decent person and I'm trying my best. So you
Yeah.
need to learn how to accept yourself.
Was that a bit
What's
of a light bulb moment? Okay, I need to change here, or was it more of a kind of slow developing process throughout your career of realization?
probably more of the latter.
Okay.
And I think it's a lifelong journey. And I still have days where, you know, I go into self loathing. And I know that's kind of where I wouldn't say confidence is my problem. I'd say liking myself
Yeah.
has been my biggest challenge. And so I know that that's probably always going to be there. And some days, I find harder than others, but I've got more tools in my toolkit to be able to deal with
Mhm.
that. But also to recognize that just because you feel that way doesn't mean you deserve to feel that way.
Yeah.
Just because you think you're unworthy doesn't mean you are unworthy. And also, everybody else is probably feeling it too. We just don't talk
Yeah.
about it very much because you think
Exactly.
it's a bit of an ugly thing to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah. I think verbalizing it to start with is really, really key. Can you just describe what you mean to the listeners by mindfulness? I
Mm.
know it's a kind of
Yeah.
everyone's talking about it now, but what does it mean to you? And
Yes.
what does it look like in action, I guess, in practice for you?
Yeah, and I have referred to it a lot, haven't I? I mean, I started out with the Headspace app,
Okay.
and it was really just it's because, I can be a bit feisty slash angry. And I think a well-meaning friend sort of suggested you might calm down a bit if you were to try some of this chanting stuff. And I think they did that from a clear, safe
Right.
distance.
Yeah.
So I think to start with, it was because I just wanted to be a bit nicer and just sort of round off those prickly
Yeah.
edges. But what it means to me now is thoughts, you can't necessarily control what you think,
Yeah.
right? Thoughts will pop up. But what I didn't realize for a long time is you can decide how much energy to give to those thoughts. You can decide whether or not to pursue that narrative and go,
Yeah.
I'm a monster, I'm a monster, I'm a monster, and look for evidence as to why you are.
Mm.
Or you can go, ah, that's the I'm a monster narrative.
Yeah. Spin
And
it.
that's just what my brain does. And I'm going to let that go and I'm going to focus on something else. So it's a kind of dance between noticing and focusing. You notice
Yeah.
what comes up, you decide if it's helpful,
Yeah.
and then you focus on something that's actually helpful. And it was changing my relationship with the thoughts and feelings in my head and
Mhm.
realizing you do get to choose how you interact with those thoughts and
Yeah.
feelings. And that gives you a bit more agency. So the next time you're going down a sort of destructive path, you've just got a little bit more choice where you can step back and go, I don't have to go down this path. I can
Right.
choose a different path.
And did it take a bit of time to kind of recognize those moments of when you were kind of maybe snowballing a little
Mm,
bit and then have the ability to step back and change the narrative, like you said?
absolutely. I mean, that's why they recommend that you do it, daily.
Daily.
And you don't have to go off and become a Buddhist monk. But I do like the 3-minute daily meditation with Headspace. So it's just keep reminding yourself. And I think
Mm.
for me, it's remembering you have a choice about how you engage with
Yeah.
your thoughts. And it's easy to forget that. So
Mhm.
it is doing it repeatedly. And then it starts to just subtly change how you respond in the
Right.
moment because you've trained yourself to do. You've trained your mind.
What other tools would you say are out there to do? So you've mentioned the kind of the 3 minute
Yeah,
thing on Headspace, and I've used Headspace a lot as well, actually. And
yeah.
there are some good little kind of drills on there. But is there anything else that you would suggest that people can do, just kind of day to day life, whether it is in sport or in
Mm,
business, or maybe struggling with exams? If there's any kind of young listeners listening
mm.
now, yeah, what kind of practical tips would you have for kind of implementing mindfulness in your life?
Yeah, so I definitely think doing it repeatedly.
Mhm.
The train hard, fight easy. Like I cannot emphasize that enough. But also, I think the other thing I really noticed is this kind of ability to sit with a bit of discomfort.
Okay.
And I think that is so useful for so many reasons. So in mindfulness, we'd call that acceptance or noticing, where an uncomfortable feeling comes up. Maybe you feel sad.
Yeah.
Now you could go, I'm going to focus on something else, but maybe it actually feels right to feel a bit sad. Maybe your favorite pop star has, I don't know, passed away or something like that.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a time to be able to sit with that feeling and actually kind of going back to the imposter syndrome and that feeling of pressure. I think there's a time to be able to sit with that and go, oh, it's scary
Mm.
trying to be the best I can be. And it's tiring. And actually, it's okay I feel like that, because I think often we shame ourselves
Yeah.
for feeling something and we try and get rid of it. We try and eliminate the fear.
Mm.
So I think being able to sit with anger, sadness, discomfort, however it shows up, that's actually an act of self compassion. And what it means is that you build confidence that I can deal with discomfort. So the next time you have to have an awkward conversation, you don't run away from it because you go,
Yeah.
I've built the muscles to sit with something that's uncomfortable. So, how would you do that practically? Well, first of all, when a feeling comes up, I kind of suggest, sit with it for 30 seconds and you can say to yourself, it's okay that I feel
Yeah.
this and it's okay that I don't like feeling this, but it is a feeling and I can tolerate it. So, that's the kind of
Okay.
mindfulness side. There are also physical things we do. So, cold showers while swimming, anything
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
uncomfortable, rather than running away at the first sign of discomfort, just allowing yourself
Good
to be
idea.
hungry,
Yeah.
all of these things you can do. And it's just training yourself. Discomfort won't kill me
Mm.
and I can survive it. And it just builds these amazing resilience tools that I think we really need.
Do you think as a society we've learned to become too comfortable now?
I think we are the victims of our own success
Yeah.
because we've created a lovely, comfortable world.
Yeah.
Not, that doesn't apply globally. Of course, there are people that are, hungry and cold right now, but
Mm.
most of us live a very comfortable existence.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, when things get uncomfortable, we assume something's wrong.
Mm.
And actually, I think that we need to remember that actually that's kind of where the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think then, well, we know that resilience is pretty key. It's a key character trait to have, isn't it? How would you suggest almost creating resilient people if, like you say, life is too comfortable
Yeah.
now? Like, how do we go about it? Because I think we're constantly, especially in sport, is everyone's trying to better our environments for the next generations coming through, so that girls growing up playing cricket aren't having to get changed in boys changing rooms, or wear smelly old
Mhm.
boys kit. There's loads of things now, loads of examples like that. How do we actually create resilience then in people in better environments now?
And it's a question that I have been, I think part of my brand and what I'm trying to do is answer that question.
Yeah.
And I suppose the question I ask myself is, how do I distill 21 years of military training
Yeah.
into something that people can do every day? Because we are renowned for being resilient. And I think part
Mm.
of it is because we've been cold, wet, and hungry for such a long time that you learn that. So how do you do that without camping on a soggy, wet moor? And this is where
Yeah, just make you go and do that. Just off you go.
and so this is kind of a sort of slightly shameless plug, but I this year came up with the kind of mantra practice scared.
Nice.
And that was my way of trying to give people something
Mm.
that they can do every day. And it's sort of train hard, fight easy, but in a
In a
kind of
practical
way that
way.
people can do it without
Yeah.
going off and joining the military. So the two elements are really important. Practice something repeatedly, because that's how you make it automatic. And that's
Nice.
how it's easy
Mhm.
when the pressure
Comes
ramps
on.
up. But also practicing scared. And I don't mean jump out of planes, but like something that's a little bit scary for you. So
Yeah.
maybe it's giving feedback, maybe it's receiving feedback, maybe it's being vocal in a meeting when you normally wouldn't be. whatever it is, we all kind of know when we're holding ourselves back because it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Identify something that's a little bit scary, not terrifying, a little bit scary that you know is going to propel you to the next
Mm.
level. Turn that into a daily action, small enough that you can start it tomorrow, but scary enough that you know it's stretching you, and practice scared.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so key. Do you think we need just that little bit of pressure in our lives just to kind of force some good out of it?
I think there is a reason why people say, positive pressure or
Mm.
pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
I do think being, like, for example, I was thinking on the way up here on the train, am I scared of failure? I'm probably much less scared of failure than I used to be because I
Mm.
think failure is data and I think you can leverage it um, to learn. But I don't ever want to completely eliminate fear of failure because that would
Yeah.
mean I wouldn't try so hard,
Yeah.
you know?
I feel like the achievements wouldn't feel as
Yeah,
successful, would it, if you're not
exactly.
pushing yourself?
So I do think a little bit of fear factor,
Mm.
and I call it fear, but you might refer to it as pressure, but a little bit of whatever that is for you, I
Yeah.
do think keeps us kind of striving to be
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah, and I think learning from that failure is so key, like you said, and then you can keep moving forwards. How did you learn from failure in the military? Did you guys have a set process that you kind of went through? Was it quite strategic, or was it
Mm-mm.
very much kind of learn on the job or each mission as it went?
No, so we're very formulaic, very process
Yeah.
driven. So the debrief is a big thing for us. Every mission gets debriefed.
Okay.
Not always very brief. Sometimes we'd call it a D-long because we've had on quite a long
I
time.
like that. I might steal that and take it back.
And actually, the brief would take up as much time as the debrief. So it's not like
Okay.
just do it in 5 minutes type thing,
Yeah.
unless it's Friday and it's happy hour, of course. Sometimes. But yeah, so every mission would involve a debrief so that you would debrief as a crew
Okay.
to learn from that. But also, if you did make a mistake, particularly if it was a human factors,
Mhm.
but even if it was a technical thing, we would have a reporting system.
Okay.
And it was really kind of hammered into our DNA. If you don't report this, somebody else could make the same mistake
Yeah.
and they might not live to tell the tale.
Yeah.
So, and I know, for a lot of people in the corporate space, they think, well, what's the cost of me sharing a mistake? But we know the
Yeah.
cost of not sharing a mistake could be fatal.
You are on the extreme end of
Yeah.
that failure.
So we'd have the debrief, but also we had a reporting culture where we would talk about what had gone wrong
Yeah.
so that other people can learn from it. So we would multiply the learning by sharing
Yeah.
the learning.
And was that individuals sharing how they felt in the moment, or was it, like you say, somebody else had watched and written down what they saw was the mistake? How did it kind of come about?
Yeah. So normally it's self-reporting. It's always better. It's always easier if you can sort of tell your own story. So we would have a reporting system where you could
Okay.
put in those reports. But equally, there was a reporting system which made it as easy as possible for people to share the learning. So if something has gone unreported and someone else is seeing something go, I'm not happy about this, then they could put in an anonymous report. So we had
Right.
lots of
Okay.
different
Different
ways of
ways.
trying to make it as
Yeah.
accessible as possible for anybody who sees something that
Yeah.
they think is important that they can share
Yeah. And did you only ever learn from failures, or did you kind of debrief your successes as
it.
well? What people, because I think it's
Yeah.
so human nature to go, I did that wrong, I did that wrong, I
Yeah.
didn't do that, and we don't sit back and go, actually, I nailed that bit.
Absolutely.
I did
Yeah.
that bit really well. What was it? What was it like for
Yeah.
you?
So we would often kind of do the bathtub type thing. So start high, go the bottom bit. There's another less flattering phrase for it, which involves something to do with a sandwich. But I'll let you
Yeah.
fill in the
I
blanks.
know the one.
So yeah, we would absolutely, and of course, you know what's coming. So you do still focus on the negatives, but we certainly would try to sort of counteract that because also you may have heard that the brain, for every positive thought we have five negative
Yeah.
thoughts. So we're wired for negativity because that's what keeps you alive.
Yeah.
So to sort of try and counteract that, we would, try to focus more on the positives.
Mm.
So yeah, absolutely. You do need to do that, and we all want to know that we did a good job. So we definitely did do that.
Yeah. And did you find that if you ever did make a mistake, or like you say, you've admitted it, you shared it, how easy did you, or hard did you find it to kind of then let it go, or did it kind of sit with you for quite a while? Because I think that's something that
Yeah.
a lot of people might struggle with. Is, yeah, we've admitted it. it looks kind of front facing that we're fine with it and we've dealt with it and we've moved on, but really it still takes a while to really let that emotion go.
It's really valid, isn't it? I think, and yeah, it's really interesting. I think we were quite good. One of the things that we're sort of renowned for is compartmentalization.
Okay.
Maybe a bit too much sometimes, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think we probably did a lot of the time we were able just to move on. But I think it's quite a personal thing. There'll be some things that you can't let go as easily.
Yeah.
Um, and I can certainly say from my own personal life, there are, I call them trauma with little t's. So I'm not PTSD full blown,
Yeah.
rocking myself to sleep at night. But we've all probably had little traumas in our
Yeah,
life
that's stuck with
where
you.
we've just been really devastated about, a way something's turned out. And I think, it is very likely that some of those things will be harder to let go of than others.
Yeah.
And again, this is where I kind of found mindfulness was just there will be certain things that will always find harder to let go of, but I over time can loosen my grip.
That's what I
Probably
was going
always
to
be
ask,
there.
whether mindfulness has just kind of helped kind of settle it down a bit and
Yeah,
help you deal with it.
I think we often think about closure and we want to be able to sort of wrap it up in a neat little bow and go, that's done.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's
Yeah.
as
Black
black and
and
white
white.
as that, but I
Yeah.
think you can just have a little bit of distance and you just learn to have a little bit of distance with these things.
Yeah.
That's certainly been my experience.
Did it help having a good kind of team culture in the military, or what was it like for you?
Yeah,
In your 21 years, I guess it must have
yeah.
changed a fair bit.
Well, and you don't because you're immersed in it, you often don't see it until you're out.
Yeah.
So I realize now how lucky I was to be in a culture where we really are encouraged to share mistakes. And generally we're treated very well when we do it. There are obviously exceptions,
Yeah.
but and I realized that is not the same for lots of
Yeah. Lots of
organizations.
places.
So I realize that now. Also, I realized that at the time we would be the first people to say, "Oh well, if I say that, I'm going to get told off." So you often when you're in it, you can't see how good it is.
Yeah.
Um, so I do think I was lucky. I also think we're pretty good at banter,
Yeah.
and again, sometimes we get that wrong. It can be a bit harsh, but I think it really does help. Humor is a great way of just. I remember a friend once saying it's like oven gloves for holding hot stuff.
Nice. I
And
like
it
that.
just allows you to just have that lightness of touch about something
Yeah.
that can be quite serious.
Yeah, especially in your environment where
Yeah.
things well, I'm
Yeah.
imagining can get pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Were you kind of the driver of that with as the leader? Were you kind of conscious of kind of lightening the mood in certain areas?
No, I probably wasn't as good as I'd like to be. But there were, I remember spending a lot of my career just laughing because we
Yeah.
just all would just take the mick out of each other.
Yeah.
And it's something I now try to be more intentional about. And being a speaker, I'm obsessed with trying to be funny. So, and the debriefs are often a good time. And also, the Friday happy hour, that's when often the unofficial debrief would happen and you'd be like, oh my goodness, you'll never believe what I did today, kind of thing.
Nice.
We just have a really good laugh about it.
Yeah.
And I guess to your point, it makes it easier to let go of something when you've been able to laugh about it.
Yeah,
So I
got
think
you.
that really helped.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is we recognize that relationships are not postcard, hallmark perfect. People do fall out.
Yeah.
People can be quite rude to each other, but our relationships weren't fragile.
Mm.
They could survive conflict and tension. So I
Yeah.
think we had faith in each other that, what you could say some pretty close to the bone
Yeah.
stuff. And I think often what I see now is people are so scared of upsetting each other. And they think that relationship will never
Gone.
survive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it actually will. We're more robust than you think.
Yeah. And was that a
Um,
typically male dominated environment? Were you one of the only women in the RAF, or?
yeah, I think it, I'm always wary of making it a gender
Mm.
thing. But yeah, I think blokes are known for being blokes. That's very, they're sort of renowned for being quite brutal with each other.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
immediately when you said about the banter and using
yeah,
humour, my mind just went to it being a typically male-dominated environment.
yeah.
I don't know whether that's a good assumption or a bad assumption, but it's just what
I just think
came to mind.
there are let's just say it is a male banter thing for a minute,
Mhm.
for want of a better label.
Yeah.
I think that there are very positive attributes to being able to say, and this is a really on PC thing, but they'd say, man up, wet pants or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, sometimes that is just what you need to say to someone. Just
Yeah,
go, come on, like,
absolutely.
we just got to get on with this. And so I think the ability to be able to just cut through it, but
Yeah.
do it with a bit of humor, I think is incredibly helpful. And if that happens to be something that men are quite good at, whereas women, we tend to be all like, oh no, let's have a
Yeah.
little talk about it. Then maybe there's something we can learn,
Yeah, from
in
that.
that scenario because,
Yeah.
yeah, often it's exactly what we need at
Yeah,
the moment.
absolutely. How did you find being one of the few females? Did it affect you much? Were you kind of conscious of it at the time or
Um, yeah, yes and no. So very few women would get through as
Yeah.
pilots because, I mean, I got told I couldn't fly because my arms were too short.
Right, okay.
And that's quite common for
Is
women
it?
because we tend to be smaller than the men. So a lot of
Okay.
women, even if they passed the aptitude, and again, a lot of them would fail because we tend to play less video games than boys. And again,
Okay.
big generalization.
Yeah.
So statistically, I was in the minority. And I think that
Mhm.
does always make you think I'm very lucky to be here.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say, people always say, did you have to be better?
Mm.
Flying a plane's hard enough as it is without having to be better. I was
Just
happy
gotta
just to
fly the
be the
plane.
standard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, the aircraft doesn't know who's flying it, and it
Yeah.
doesn't care. So actually, you're aware of it, but you don't have a lot of time to dwell on it, and you don't.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, flying a plane isn't to do with physical
Mm.
strength. So actually, it's perfectly possible that I would be as good, if not better, than the men.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about it a lot. I would say it was lonely at
Yeah.
times. There weren't a lot of girls to sort of chat about girly stuff to.
Mhm.
And that did sometimes play on my mind. And I had to learn how to deal with that and
Mm.
not overcompensate by being too blokey.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fine
Uh,
balance.
but generally speaking, it just didn't cross my mind. I just didn't think
Mm.
about it. And I don't think the men did either. I don't think
Yeah.
they went, Squadron Leader Furness is a female. They just went, it's Squadron Leader Furness and she's our
Yes.
boss kind of thing.
I think that's probably indicative of the environment and culture that you just spoken about, that it seems from the outside that you had a pretty open and honest culture and everyone was accepted. So it sounds like a pretty cool environment to be a leader of as well. Can you talk us through what it was like? Not necessarily, yeah, I think one thing being in the RAF anyway, but then being a leader as well.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Yeah. I mean, fascinating because in 21 years, a lot changes and you
Mm.
probably don't notice it until you leave. But of course, there was definitely a bit more um, misogyny when I joined versus when I left. And
Okay.
so, it's like when you watch old films now and you go, they can't say
Did
that.
they actually just say
Oh
that?
my goodness, so the culture did change.
Mhm.
And so the way that we lead people has changed.
Yeah.
And it used to be, it always used to be about like-minded people. We're all about like-minded people. But of course now we're like, oh no, we don't want like-minded
Yeah, it's
people.
got
We
to be
want
celebrating
people who think
difference.
differently.
Yeah.
So that was a complete mindset shift.
Yeah.
Um,
Where do you
so
sit on that, as especially as having a team that needs to be that close and
yeah.
kind of, yeah, like you say, really on board with each other and know exactly how to communicate well with each other? What did you think about that kind of celebrating difference, or
Mm.
or was it better to try and have like-minded individuals on your team?
No, I think the best leaders and the best teams were able to play to people's
Yeah.
strengths because you multiply output by allowing everybody to be individually brilliant at what they are.
Yeah.
And if you're all as great at the same stuff, then you've got less,
Yeah.
less options and less ability to solve problems in different ways. So, even though, you know, in the military, they do sort of recruit from a certain, maybe kind of pool of thinking,
Mm.
there's still diversity within that. And I think they're getting even better at it because we've realized now that,
Yeah,
the
that this
benefits of
yeah.
it. So I think the smart leaders and the smart teams did celebrate people for being a
Mm.
little bit different. And again, we do it with banter and taking the mick out of people, but we would celebrate the differences and where possible, let people play to their strengths,
Yeah.
and be good at what they're good at.
So if I ask people in your team, what was Sarah like as a leader?
Oh gosh,
What
do that.
Yeah, I should have actually asked them beforehand and surprised you with it, but
Oh
what would
goodness.
they say?
Yeah. I mean, some people might say I was a bit scary,
Okay.
but
Were you more kind of authoritarian?
Um, just a bit fiery,
Yeah.
maybe, and not always deliberately. Sometimes, I wouldn't always control my emotions very well.
Right.
So I'm quite an emotional person.
Mhm.
And so sometimes that does spill over. So I think that was, I would be worried that that's what they would talk about,
Fair,
or
yeah.
especially was a bit moody sometimes, which I was. But I think, I'd like to think, I mean, I remember my boss saying, you leave from the front and you practice what you preach. So I think I was quite brave,
Yeah.
and um, I I think I was good fun, and I do think
Mm.
that's quite important, to try and enjoy, take pride and take joy in what you do.
Mm.
Um,
What was something that you're most proud of as a leader in the RAF?
um, so becoming a parent helped me quite a lot, because think before, when I'd seen military leaders, I thought it's basically your train set and you get to boss people around and they do what you say. Whereas when you're raising a child, they haven't read that brief. They don't care. They'll do what they want, right? You're kind of you're raising a tiny pink dictator.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, hang on, I've done this, and this, and you're not, why are you not listening to me?
and so actually that was really helpful for me, is like, you can't just boss people around and tell people what to do.
Yeah.
They might do it because in the military we're quite good at following orders, but that's not really a great way to lead. What you really want is for people to kind of come on board with you
Yeah.
and buy into what it is that you're doing. So I think I realized that sort of um, showing people why they're there. And we're very purpose driven in the military anyway, because
Yeah.
we feel like we're doing a good job.
Mhm.
But I think that's really important as a leader, is to remind people, like, this is why we're doing this. We're here to hopefully make the world safer, um, and have real pride in what you do. I think that's really important.
Mhm.
But also, I think, mm, and I suppose what I'm saying is, influencing them to want to do something as opposed to doing it because they have to.
Yeah.
But also, I think being a parent helped me embrace the female side or the feminine side of me.
Right.
And I remember a boss sort of saying, you're being too motherly, um, and you're being too soft in them because you're, thinking about welfare and stuff like that. We don't do that. Um,
What's welfare?
and I was like,
No, we
well,
can think about that now.
yeah. And I was like, well, maybe I am being motherly, but why does that make me wrong? So I
Yeah.
remember when I actually embraced that kind of maternal instinct and went, I'm going to use that to guide my decisions. I think actually it's when I made the best decisions, and
That's
actually
cool.
it's when I sort of found my leadership style. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a bit moody, but I'm also absolutely, kind of like the tiger mum, and I'm like, I'm absolutely going to look after my people, going to
So
like take pride in doing that.
you had your charge and went back into the military. What was that transition like going back in? Was it pretty seamless? Did it take quite a while?
Um, so I mean, it's definitely a team sport raising a child when you're in the
Yeah.
military. There's just no way, because you're flying at night, you're deploying for
Mm.
months at a time. So I had to get a lot of help in to
Yeah.
help with that. But I don't know any better.
Yeah.
Neither does my son. So from that angle, it was fine. The biggest challenge was that his dad is also military,
Right. Well.
and we were both deployed at the same
Oh
time
my God.
to Afghanistan
Oh my
when
God.
my son was less than 2, which I called Operation Orphan. So that was logistically very challenging and emotionally quite challenging,
Operation,
because I was
Operation
like,
Orphan.
yeah,
You do use humour
yeah,
to navigate potential trauma.
exactly.
Wow.
Um,
So how did you cope with that? You're both in Afghanistan and your son's at home.
um,
How
We
did you
had
get through
helpful
that?
grandparents.
Yeah.
We had an au pair, so she helped a lot. Just had to call in the family,
Wow.
just it was, they often say it takes a village to raise a child. That was definitely true in our
Yeah.
sense. You can't do it on your own. You have to ask for help,
Wow.
basically.
And did you always want to be a mother? Or you're always quite
No,
career focused?
no, I didn't feel maternal in any way, and but didn't feel so against it that I didn't want to. And then when I got married, I was like, well, normally what happens is you have a baby. So I kind of thought, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm really glad I did. But I
Yeah.
sort of did it as a kind of, yeah, I think now would be a good time. And also, I was doing a ground tour at that point. So you don't fly your entire career. You do a 2 or 3 year stint where you're doing
Right.
what they call a desk job.
Okay.
And I thought this is a great time to get pregnant, because if you get pregnant as a pilot, you get grounded the minute you get pregnant.
Yeah.
Even before, most people don't tell people until you're 3 months in or whatever. You get grounded like week 1.
Straight away.
So you lose that 9 months of your career of
Yeah.
flying,
Yeah.
plus the maternity leave. So for
Wow.
every time you have a child, you're going to lose potentially 18 months out of your flying career.
Wow.
So it's a big impact as a pilot.
Yeah. It's a
Whereas
big
if you,
consideration to make,
it
isn't
really
it?
is,
Yeah.
yeah. Whereas if you're doing a desk job, you can work all the way up to,
Yeah. And
the week
continue.
before if you want to, which is exactly what I did. So I was quite clinical in terms of timing. I went, I'm in a desk job right now.
Let's do it
I'm
now.
going to hopefully go bang pregnant,
And it worked.
which I was very lucky that it did kind of happen like that. So he was
Wow.
very timely, very
So
grateful for
then
that.
how long after that was it when you decided that you were done with your career, you're ready to move on from being a pilot?
So, I mean, when we both deployed, that did make me recalibrate a bit. And I was like, do I want to do that again?
Mm.
I really love what I do, but I don't know if I love it enough,
Okay.
particularly for both of us to be employed at the
Yeah.
same time. I was a bit annoyed about that, if I'm honest, because I think we could have tried to
Yeah.
um, deconflict it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that made me reassess my priorities. I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. But also logistically, it's just very challenging with both military parents.
Mhm.
So the final job I did in the military was a teaching job,
Okay.
and that was amazing. I was teaching air safety, which is also probably why I'm quite tuned into the whole sharing mistakes, because it's literally what I taught for 3 years. Was
Yeah.
like, how do we learn from mistakes? But also, it was brilliant being a mum because it was all the courses run Monday to Friday,
Yeah.
9 till 5.
Yeah.
You have big breaks, during the summer holidays. So it was an absolute dream as a mum, and actually became a single mum. We separated, although his dad's very much part of his life. But actually, it was entirely possible to be a single mum
Yeah.
in the military, and there's not many jobs where you can do that. I would not have been able to do that if I was
Absolutely.
still flying.
Yeah, that sounds hugely challenging. It sounds like testament to the environment that you had there.
Mm.
Which, yeah, I think has surprised me, to be honest, the fact that you've done this amazing career and you've had a child whilst doing it, and now transitioned into being a motivational speaker, public speaker, author as well. Do
hmm
you want to tell us a little bit more about that transition into being a motivational speaker?
So when I left, because I discovered mindfulness, so to speak, obviously I didn't discover it, it was there before I turned up, but
You discovered it to you.
discovered it for
Yeah.
me. And I thought, this is life changing,
Okay.
and also was starting to see, it's not just me that feels like this. And there's so many brilliant people that I see who are putting a brave face on stuff. And there's a bit of a war zone going on in there.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart that they feel like they've got no option but just to live with it, or they don't know how to deal with it. And unfortunately, mental health is much more problematic for men in the military than it is for women,
Yeah.
because we tend to talk about stuff
Yeah.
and men don't. And suicide is one of the biggest killers in the military.
Really.
And it's really tragic because
Mm.
men don't talk about this stuff, generally speaking.
Do you have psychologists in the military, or like mental health
We
practitioners?
do, but
Yeah.
again, nobody wants to be referred because
Then
they
it's
think
seen
they're
as
going to lose
weakness.
their medical flying status.
Right.
Getting better,
Mm.
but traditionally it's not been. People just don't talk about this stuff because they don't want to get grounded.
Yeah. Or
So
see that they've got anything wrong at all.
yeah,
They're ready to go.
exactly. And it's trying to mindfulness as a way of dealing with stuff without the wrong label. There is
Yeah.
nothing wrong for you can have very dark thoughts, and that's
Yeah.
just what brains do.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have to be controlled by them. But the first thing is not feeling there's something wrong with you for feeling these things.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to, like, my heart just broke that people were going through this silently, and I
Mm.
really wanted to help with this. So I was like, that's it. I am going to become a mindfulness coach. I'm going to cure the world of suffering. This is my new mission. But as you know, being an entrepreneur, you have to work out, well, where's the commercial aspect to this?
Yeah.
And people weren't necessarily as interested in mindfulness as they were in my military expertise and the questions that you were asking about. How do you deal with pressure? How
Yeah.
do you make decisions under pressure? Everybody wanted to know about that.
Mhm.
So I realized I could do both.
Yeah.
I could
Tie the two in together.
convert military expertise into the commercial corporate space. And keynote speaking was a really natural transition because I've got lots of stories,
Yeah.
but also I'm weaving in a bit of mindfulness because every talk has got something about mindset and training the brain.
Mm.
And that's how I kind of sort of think of it as my currency converter. Like, how do you translate stories about flying into something that's going to help people that are doing nothing similar?
Yeah.
The thing that's the same is the human brain.
Yeah.
So that's what I use as the glue to
Yeah. And
go,
the thought process is
yeah,
regardless of the pressure. It's
yes,
people's experience of that
absolutely.
pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my kind of opening gambits is, what's the difference between incoming emails and incoming artillery fire? As far as the brain is concerned, there is no
Doesn't know.
difference. Yeah, the brain doesn't know the difference. So actually, I can use the same mindset techniques
Yeah.
that I used in a war zone that you can use when you're in your
Yeah.
office. And
And do you
so,
think there's probably more stress as well for people in the corporate world is dealing with probably overload and overwhelm, not necessarily
mhm,
the huge pressure to perform right there in that second kind of thing, but probably performance over a long time or so much work on in such a short space of time. So I imagine,
yeah,
yeah, mindfulness will really help with the stress side of things.
yeah, 100%. I think I talk about acute stress.
Mm.
Most people are dealing with chronic stress. And
Yeah.
in many ways, that's more dangerous because
Mm.
it creeps up on us.
Yeah. You
We
don't realise
normalize
it.
it.
Yeah.
We feel ashamed that we feel like there's some kind of um, extra hero label that we get for being able to withstand it.
Yeah.
My time in the military has taught me that everybody is breakable.
Mm.
If you push them hard enough, there isn't a single person you
Yeah.
can't break.
Well, that's what I was going to
Um,
ask as well. Is like, even if you potentially aren't necessarily feeling too overwhelmed or too stressed, can mindfulness be used to almost practice healthy behaviors
I think
rather than waiting until you're you're at your worst point?
absolutely. I think we want to do it proactively. And there's a new ish psychology coming out, which is positive psychology,
Mhm.
where rather than looking at people who are unwell, look at people who are abnormally well and go, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And can we do more of that? And this is
Mhm.
where things like gratitude come from and even like affirmations.
Yeah.
And it's actually trying to go in here as opposed to going in here and going, if we did more of that, we would build
Mhm.
resilience and we would give ourselves, kind of more of a cup to drink from
Absolutely.
when we need it.
Absolutely. So if there was one piece of advice then, or one key learning that you've taken from your 21 years of military experience that you are now translating into the corporate world, what would you say that is?
I do think the whole discomfort thing for me is so key. I think, and I know it doesn't sound appealing, and people probably aren't jumping with joy thinking about this, but it gives you such confidence when you know that you can withstand discomfort. So, I would say if there's just think of something that you've been slightly avoiding because it's uncomfortable and see if you could
Yeah.
just turn towards it just a little bit. You don't have to suddenly change everything you do, but if you could just do something a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit scary, if you want to phrase it like that,
Yeah.
um, every
Practice scared.
day. Yeah, practice scared. I just think there's so much that you win from that. But the main thing is this resilience and this confidence.
Yeah.
And I think confidence is what we all want, right? We all just want to be able to feel like we can rely on ourselves
Yeah.
when the going gets tough. And actually, I think that's a confidence thing. And I think you get that by pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone every day.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant message to finish on. Thank you so much for sharing your tale, so many different tales. So insightful, and hopefully listeners have gained so many little pieces of practical advice that they can take away and start implementing today. So starting to be a little bit more uncomfortable
Yes.
in daily life. If people want to kind of find out a little bit more about you, maybe attend an event or get into or book you for an event, where can they find you?
Well, I've got a website, so sarahfurness.com. So if you'll find me there, I am on social media as well. LinkedIn, if you're of that sort of mindset, or Instagram, I'm on there as well. Be it coach. So any of those places, come and find me. Come and say hello, and I'd love to chat to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.